Hey everyone, welcome to Level Podcast episode 101. This is actually an episode from October 4th, 2022 with my dad and Colin. We talked about paranormal, supernatural, cryptids, other things that go on, plus like our personal experiences and Colin's experience with being a investigator, helping people through different things that they experienced. We hope you enjoyed this episode, so let's get into it. See you there, guys.
All right. Let me start off by dispelling something. And this is something that pisses a lot of people off.
Mm-hmm.
Not everything is paranormal.
Right.
Okay. By definition, and based on the original, the origins of it from parapsychology, paranormal has to do with things of the mind and the capabilities of the human being in the mind.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. There are certain events that are based on it, like poltergeist can be labeled as a paranormal event because they're based on the psyche and they fed off the emotions and the thoughts of people, mostly children. A lot of the stuff that people are encountering that they call paranormal, it become, they use it as a blanket term now. Yeah. A lot of the stuff that's out there is actually supernatural. Okay. Demons, devils, ghosts, angels, a lot of that stuff, and of course you can have events that cross paranormal and supernatural. Mm-hmm. And sometimes you get into things like witchcraft and the occult and things like that, and those branch out into the occult category. And you can have occult stuff become supernatural stuff, and you can have occult stuff become paranormal stuff, depending on whether or not there's some kind of psychic ability or like a poltergeist type of event.
Right. And like not all hauntings are spiritual in nature.
Right.
Some hauntings are energy and recordings that house. I honestly believe that a house can record memories, that they'll have memories. Oh, yeah. And like those are the hauntings that are repetitious. The same thing happens over and over again. Mm-hmm. Like we see a person go up the stairs all the time, or they do this. There's one where there's a Civil War soldier that goes through a bakery, and at night, if you're working where they do all the prepping, getting the dough and everything ready, they've all said this one guy just steps out of the wall, he looks both directions, he walks down the hall, and then he turns and walks through a hall. And that was where a storeroom used to be. And he was actually just, what do you call it?
He's like an imprint. He's
an imprint, yeah. And it was something he did over and over again. And that actually was a storehouse for weapons, gunpowder, and everything. So he was just redoing his guard duty. And so there's a difference between that and a haunting, or something else. So yeah, I agree 100% with what Colin's talking about. Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that's one of my biggest things, and that's one of the things that I put when I was putting my first book together, which I'm still working on. But basically, it was just trying to clarify that, because of TV and making everything sexy, yeah, people decided, well, we're going to call everything paranormal, and it's not. And so I don't consider myself a paranormal investigator. I call myself a prose investigator. Paranormal, religious, occult, supernatural, extraterrestrial. Okay, because there are clear definitions of what's what, mm-hmm. and then they can overlap, and then sometimes you add in things like cryptozoology and things like that.
Which, for me, I don't like lumping that in to that other group.
Right, but no, I agree with that. Cryptozoology can be its own category.
Yeah.
And the only tie over normally for a cryptozoology event to any of the other top 5 prose categories for me is when you get into the, I guess you could call it more of the fringe category, where people say that Bigfoot and things like that are the result of aliens dropping.
Yes.
Correct. Yeah.
And it's not a widely accepted theory, but it is out there. Mm-hmm. And I mean, I suppose, it has its place in the greater lexicon of things as a possibility. They could be there, they could not be there. People go looking for Bigfoot all the time. They don't find him. If he was an extraterrestrial, based thing, they could come scoop him up, they could take him off.
Well, and the thing about that is, who's to say they haven't? There have been 3 times that DNA evidence has been found from pieces of flesh, hair, or from somebody killing an animal that they reported, and then the government came in and the body was taken for it to be autopsied so they can get DNA off of it, and all of a sudden it disappeared and the government had seized it, and that was the end of that.
Yeah,
but then you go all the way back to Teddy Roosevelt. He had an experience with the Sasquatch, Bigfoot, whatever you want to call them, and there's different ones for different cultures and depending on the area that they're in, like the dog monster, the creature from Boggy Creek, and all that other stuff. But then you have the skinwalkers that are all throughout Indian, modern American history. I mean, not modern American, but indigenous American history. And then you have areas where they talk about portals, dimensions.
We have one up here.
That I know the Grand Canyon and what is it, the something mountains range, where people have died and disappeared looking for some hidden gold that was there. There's one about a ship that used to be in an ocean years ago. It's now a kind of landlocked desert. And people who've crossed the desert occasionally come back and say that you'll see a mast and part of a ship that's up, and then they come back with people, and it's gone. And that's because deserts change. They're constantly moving, just like water. Movement of sand and everything else. Stuff is never where you left it. That's why most of the conquistadors and the Spanish who came here looking for gold would end up finding and digging mines with slave labor and then get attacked by the indigenous people that they were abusing and leave. And they did the most rudimentary of maps, and they come back and all of a sudden topography's gone and they're lost. That's how we get all the lost mines and all the lost treasures. So, and sometimes there's places that there's something about the area itself that distorts your memories, distorts your you lose your what is that called, where you know where you're at, your spatial
awareness, your come on.
I mean, like situational awareness?
No, not so much that. Some of that's included. I mean, there are some people who never get lost. They always know exactly where they are, but I can't remember what the word of that. And even those people have run into areas where all of a sudden they get lost. Like people who are rescuers, hunters, and are familiar with an area because they've spent their whole life there. And then all of a sudden it's like they said, the forest moves on them. It's like they'll walk around in circles, and that's how you end up with somebody who should not have died being found dead, and their body is left in such a poor state that they look like they were starving and lost, when they by their training should have been able to survive any of those situations.
That's the whole thing about the whole missing 411, the reports of all the people going missing in different forests.
Right. And gravity hills and stuff like that, there's a few of those where things like that happen, where things actually can work in reverse. Like there's trying to remember the name of it. It's like one of the mystery houses. It's in an area. The house was built on a
ley line point, or
the ley line point's called it's like a gravity hill.
Okay. It distorts your perception of gravity because it might be leaning, or it's
right. The whole house constantly is shifting, but it's no movement. It's because of where all the things intersect. It's the gravity hill. There's a ley line at it. I can't remember the name of it at the moment. It's in my.
Well, it's just like the ghost tracks in San Antonio are an illusion. It's because it looks like it's going uphill, but if you come in and actually do a what is it that me and Roger used to? Oh man, I can't believe every time I get on this mic, I forget things. We are surveyors. And if you come in and you do a survey of the land, you realize, oh, this is actually going downhill. That's why the car starts to roll. But there are places like we went to Mexico for a wedding, and we went down. We were going up into the mountains, and my dad was driving, and he stopped and he looked, and he was like, wait a minute. And we got out, and literally it looked like we were looking up the mountain. The water was going upstream, not going down. And he was like, we got somewhere in one of his albums, I think it's at Gene's house. I know they still have a bunch of pictures.
Yeah.
There's pictures of us taking images of it because it was just so shocking to see water moving up a hill instead of downhill. It just throws off your everything you learn about gravity all of a sudden goes out the window.
Colin, I guess what we could do is, what got you into doing that up there?
I was doing it down there. When I was in high school, I was investigating ghost stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And when you were living over in, you did some of that stuff when you lived over in
Baytown.
Well, it wasn't Baytown. What was that you lived in?
I lived in Highlands and Baytown.
Highlands, yeah.
Yeah, because we lived in a couple different places. We lived in Baytown and Meadow Lake Village by the mall, which was unincorporated at the time.
It was at the mall that was the mall that got closed down, right?
Yeah, San Jack Mall.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, they just did that last year, and they're going back and redoing the whole area. Last time I was down there was like 2015. So I'm trying to get down there to see Dad at least once.
That was one of the places that still had one of the shops we went to. So we'd go to that mall after we go visit your dad's shop.
Well, that, and they had the was our daycare back in the day, would take us to the what was it, Exhilarant, whatever it was. I don't remember exactly what the thing was called, but they had that giant amusement park on the second floor of the mall.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm going through my
No, you're fine.
This is my journal. This is my investigation stuff. Dug this out there because now I started thinking, oh boy, the thing freaking popped open. Wonderful.
Oh, I hate that.
There's gonna be pages flying everywhere. Yay. All right, so because I know I have an entry I have something on Gravity Hills. But while I'm looking for it, I will bring up something that I noticed about the new Popeyes design, the layout of the building and the colors.
Mm-hmm.
The blue on it. Okay. It's called Haint Blue, Haint. And that comes all the way back from Savannah and New Orleans. And that color blue is meant to be as a design. It's literally made and created, designed to ward off evil energies and evil spirits. It's a very, very specific color of blue. As a matter of fact, there's my entry on it. And down in Savannah and in New Orleans, they would paint the shutters of the houses with it.
Yeah.
You know, because of course all the voodoo and everything like that, they would also, they would go, and it was, even for the people who didn't acknowledge the stuff, they acknowledged the lore, so they would paint the houses, and it became kind of an accepted.
Well, it's because superstition,
yes,
was rampant during that time.
And of course,
it was even when I was little.
Yeah,
there were people who would do certain things ritually, to ward off evil, ward off, stuff. And my grandmother would have beat the crud out of you walked under a ladder.
Yeah.
And then she talked about, what's her name? Not Marie Laveau. I don't. Is that the witch from Louisiana? I thought her name was different.
She was a voodoo high priestess.
High priestess, yeah. Also, she was supposedly connected with vampirism too.
Well, that's because she ended up having to deal with a lot of different things. But
I thought her name was different. I knew that. I thought Marie Laveau was the woman in the swamp, not the other one. I'll have to go look that up.
No, Marie Laveau was You know, she's
When
the,
we were,
when you go to, if you go in graveyards and you go down there and anything related to, you know, paranormal or supernatural and stuff like that, basically it's kind of like a pilgrimage to go and see her grave.
oh, we did.
Yeah, we did
When Amber first got married to Josh, we went down because normally we only got to go down when one of my family members died.
Right.
And I just was like, I'm so tired of this. I don't want to be coming home just to visit when, you know, if I'm losing somebody. So we all went down and we did the haunted tours. We did some of our own stuff. Um,
Yeah.
But even growing up there, I remember my grandmother and them telling us, you know, if we weren't in bed asleep by a certain time, there was something that would come and get all little boys and little girls who were up out past bedtime or out on the street
Yeah.
or doing anything. And when they started bringing that stuff up, we'd all run to bed.
Yeah, because
Um,
that's just another variation of like the spring heel jack and stuff too. But yeah, I mean, yeah, each culture has its own variation of it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Somewhere in all this, I have some of that stuff mapped out too. Trying to put it all back together. The one is just pain in my ass.
Need to get you to when you come down. I need to help you scan those so you can have them.
Actually,
have
I've
them
got
into a
most-
digital.
90% of this is in the book I put together. It's in PDF. I can
Okay,
actually
okay.
send you it. Like
But
90.
what always used to kill me was like you'd spend that much time organizing in a binder and those clips never hook and then somebody grab it from the spine and it would break and you know you could whatever you were using to categorize or you know separate it alphabetical by number or whatever, and then you'd have to spend hours putting it all back together, and then you'd have people borrowing, oh, can I borrow this, I want to read on it, and then you'd lose whole segments of whatever you were keeping.
In fact, I think I can make sure it was on my Google Drive site, Vinny. I'll go back and double check it. If not, I'll get it up there for you.
Yeah.
Because it covers more than just this stuff. I mean, it covers a lot of, you know, in basic investigation techniques and survival stuff. And
Well, while you're looking through there, can you give us your 3 most important investigations?
yeah, well, the first one
ones that impacted you.
All right, I sent a link.
Oh, the one
to
with
the
the
chat. Okay,
chat. I got that one.
Okay, that one has been that's literally, you know, 5 minutes from here.
Okay.
And I go in, there's some friends of mine who they're called the Pit Crew, PIT Crew. Okay, they're a group. And we've collaborated on several investigations together. You know, hey Sheila, she runs the thing. And basically it's part of the Underground Railroad. Okay, it was one of the houses where they actually put them all in the basement. They had this giant, one of the big old super heaters there, like the furnace type ones.
Mm-hmm.
And there was only walk space around it, so it was really hot, but they were down there in certain areas so they could keep warm during the winter. And they had a huge tunnel that started from there, and it went through the basements for several houses down. And parts of that has been since redone because some of it's, you know,
because
collapsed.
Development and stuff like that. But it used to go about 150 yards down to what is known as Little Salmon River. And they could go out and they could get up and they could follow the stream.
Follow the river, yeah.
Right. And so you gotta, there's always activity from the slaves who are coming through, and you know, their remembered experiences. There's, at one point it was a bar, it was a hotel. There were Union soldiers there they were like coming over convalescing or whatever. So it basically, and it was Mexico, they call it the mother of towns because it was one of the first ones built in Oswego County. A lot of stuff came off of it. Of course, Oswego developed on its own because they had the river, which connected to the Great Lakes and things like that. But Mexico was always a hub. So because of that, when they were bringing slaves north, some of them would end up staying here, but some of them would keep going to Canada. Now, Canada is anywhere from 3 to 5 hours north of here, depending on which way you go. But even though New York was, anti-slavery, but there were still people who would come up north, as the history tells us. There were people coming after their slaves to get them back, which is why we had the Underground Railroad.
And you had bounties on people, bounty hunters that would just come looking for them.
Oh, yeah. So there were times and places, and several of the houses here in town. I mean, I think it's 10 is the current count of the existing structures that were known as, to locally as part of the Underground Railroad. And the Tin Star, or the Star Clark Tin Shop, it is so. Try saying it 10 times is make you nuts. Anyway, but that is where most of the activity is. And there's a bank there was a building that was like a bank and a couple of other things. It's like you can go between the two buildings in this. Literally your arm's length apart is how close these buildings are. And there was a little tunnel going between the two of those, but the main one was at the shop. So there's constant EVP activity. There's constant the stuff with the flashlights, the new thing that they do started about 5 years ago, 10 years ago. Leave it just enough where they can go in.
I think that it's a little bit older than 10, because ghost hunters used to do it all the time. They've been off the air, and I'm talking the original show. They were doing that kind of stuff too. But
yeah, that you can get a lot of that. I've actually seen that in action. Okay, you can get if you have IR on your cameras, you can actually get movement.
Right. That's what always bothered me, was always using I would use a digital camera, and then I would use a regular film camera. Yeah. Because some things you'd catch on the film camera, you wouldn't see in the digital, and then vice versa.
Right.
So
unless you have a lower quality digital camera, like 800 by 400, or some of the older models, they were really close to analog. So they
very close. Yeah.
The more digital it gets, the harder it is.
To see.
Too precise. So that's why some people will go with the latest stuff, and then they'll see it on the TV shows. Hey, we got the latest, and we got this 4K and this 8K camera. Why?
That's the thing I don't like a lot of these shows, because they add extra sounds to it.
Oh yeah,
they add music,
the heightened attention.
Blow it up, and that's not. If you're in a really scary place, if you're in a place where there's a lot of powerful things going on, you don't need to add any of that.
No.
I'm not afraid to be. I've been chased out of places where I was running, to get out of there, and it was most of the time less about scary sounds, and it was a pressure.
Yeah, it's a pressure. Yeah, it's like you just feel this.
It was like everything in the room got dense. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and exactly. If you have an authentic site, you don't need to go doing that stuff.
Yeah.
So there's like I said, being able to get some kind of interaction with these slaves going through that hits you right it hits you right at your core, because you can actually, it's palatable. The air changes.
Yeah, that's the word I was looking for. Yeah.
It basically, you feel, especially if you're sensitive, or you're at least willing to hear it out and to see it out, and you're willing to, not be like Zach Baggins, come on, fight me, and all that stupid crap.
The whole idea of provoking, I just have never agreed with. We need to provoke. No, you don't.
I even talk about that at some point in the stuff I put together, but no, I mean, it's just provoking is. I don't know. It's like small dick syndrome or something.
Yeah. And what do you feel about? Excuse me. Emotion. Like sometimes you go in, all of a sudden you're in a place and you just feel deep sadness. Or you can feel, like I say, when I smell the flowery smell, that it's a perfume, and everybody who comes in my house at some point smells it and I have nothing that would bring that smell. But when you scent that smell, you feel safety, you feel love, you feel warmth, and you feel joy. and I don't mind that smell.
No, that falls in the category of sense and smells, and that happens. That happens to me a lot of time when I'm at church.
And I told you, remember, there was a time when I got a really earthy decomposition, rotting meat.
Yeah.
Just almost like what you'd think a bog would be or would smell like.
Yeah.
I used to have a couch here by this window, and I'd fall asleep watching a movie in the living room. And for a while there, this is the only place I felt safe as I would sleep in here because the activity could drive you out of a room.
Yes.
And,
you know, and that's the worst thing too, is like, because you have that hallway that goes around and like, you just feel, unless there's a light there, it's like, it looks, you just
it's
feel
unusually dark in there. Even when everything, there's a light on in other parts of the house, it's like the light doesn't penetrate into the darkness. Yes. Yeah. But I live here, I'm here by myself, and it's like my home.
Yeah.
And it's like the old song, oh, don't be here when the morning comes. I'm going to be here when the morning comes. How you going to run? But that smell coming into this room in here would drive me out of the room. And I could not tell if it was coming from outside or it was something passing through, but it would wake me up out of sleep. What is that stench? Make sure to go check the garbage, make sure there's nothing rotting in there, check my refrigerator. God forbid my refrigerator ever shut down and I lose all the groceries.
Or something in the walls.
Huh?
Or something in the walls.
Or something in the wall. That would, yeah, boy, that would.
If that option ever comes across your mind, you're like, oh man, do I really want to know? It's just.
Well, and then like,
remember Stu's house?
That
when we moved into Stu's house, he was like, you can do anything you want with this house. I was thinking about buying it. And he said, I'm going to tell you, don't touch anything in the attic. So when Josh moved in, we were trying to move stuff up so we'd have more room. And we went up there, and I remember them going, oh, look, it's dressers, it's crates. And I remember just, don't touch it. Yeah. Don't look at it. Don't mess with it. Right. What do? Walk over and open the drawer and look in and like, get okay, everybody downstairs, just everybody downstairs. And we had to climb down that rickety old staircase thing that went up into the attic. And I remember talking to him and going, hey, man, what's with all this stuff? He goes, I don't know. It was up there when we bought the house. I went up there to clean it out one time and it freaked me out and I left it. And did y'all mess with it? No, I didn't mess with it.
It goes, I live here. Get out. Okay.
So I'm going to say the one case that absolutely changed my perspective is at the Star Clark shop, where Sheila, the leader of Pit Crew, and we were doing EVP sessions upstairs, and upstairs area, they have this giant table. Okay. It's like burial logs, life logs, people, logs from when it was a hotel and things like that. And we started getting EVPs from a guy, and he was guiding us because he was trying to get a message. He wasn't at rest because he needed to get a message to his family. And he was guiding us through, and he was giving us enough hints. We were
where to look.
Yeah. We traced back everything on him. We were able to get his entire story and everything, and we were able to locate his family and pass the message along to him. And it was, I mean, and I used to have it on my phone. I don't know what happened to it. I'm gonna see if I can get a hold of her, because I think it'd be okay for her to, if she said it was okay, then I could send it to you guys, and we could actually, because
put it in the episode
because we had I've got like there's apps and stuff like that. I had one of those Talkbox, or not Talkbox, Box apps.
Yeah.
Okay. And then this one was actually really good because it would log it as it went through. It would, at this time, at this thing, this is what it said. It translated it, so you were able to go look at it.
And you didn't have any problems with it mistranslating or actually misspelling words?
Nope. Nope, because there was enough respectful, and and Sheila's really sharp. So between the two of us, we were able to piece everything together, and we were able to, it gave him because the fact we were able to figure it out, it gave him more energy to be able to continue instead of the fading out and things like that. It fed him enough to be able to give us all the information we needed. And we were able to lay it all out. And okay, this is you. We have this here. Okay, we know this. We were able to trace it all out and get this message there. And that, and we were actually able to help him go
to rest and be able to move on. That's the one thing you should do is try to figure out what's keeping him here, and then figure out if you can help him move on.
Yeah, move on.
That's been the tenet of one of me getting involved with it all along. It's for a lot of people, it's like you see on TV. Oh, we got ghosts, we got this and that, we got this evidence, and blah blah blah. 90% of them, that's all they want. They want to be able to document. And you have all the favorite hot spots, like Eastern State Penitentiary, and
it always seems to be the Stanley same Hotel. Place. Yeah. Well, and then Alcatraz, like one of the guys, he's always returning there, and he's on what is it, the American History Channel, and I'm like, okay, we're just repeating stuff here. You're just coming back here anytime your ratings needs a bump. There are so many more
because you can get more content.
There's there's whole towns that are deserted. I mean, we think about what happened with Chernobyl, which was a whole city and a community. Man, there's tons of those all over the world.
What is it?
I'm trying to think of. There's one where they were digging asbestos, and it was a big thing. That was the new gold, and all the community built up quickly, and then all their children started dying, and then the workers started dying, and that place got to be known as a hot spot because of so much death there.
Well, you have that one town that was building up in California, that was near a river, and then they were mining salt, and it became completely just not viable to live there. It killed all the
that's the difference between a cursed place and then
and environmentally unviable.
And the reason you're not always going to get hit, there's going to be hit and miss around water, is because water is a natural barrier,
and limestone is a natural conductor of energy, so you get a lot of spikes around them. Now for me, as long as I've been alive, I've not been able to wear watches. They always die within a few hours of me putting on. If it's a brand new battery, it dies. I can use pocket watch as long as it's wound up, because it's a different type of energy source. But in this house, you can fully charge something and it'll be dead within an hour. It happens to the kids when they come visit, friends. My nurse I've had nurses come in and say, I just charged his phone. I don't know why it's dying. And it's hard to tell them, there's something in the house that zaps energy. Like I said, with my cell phone, I can have it on a charger all day and it barely will show a charge. It's like it's not getting anything from it. But if I take the same charger and the same phone and go over to Ember's house or do it outside of the house, it'll charge regularly and have a full charge. And I really don't understand that. I know that magnetic fields can affect equipment. They can also affect high electromagnetic waves given off from a grounded wire or unshielded wire that can actually affect your brain, and so make you see and hallucinate and sense things that aren't really there. So there's a lot of explanations you got to go through first before you can get to calling anything paranormal, supernatural, or whatever.
Right. The idea is to try and debunk it first without saying everything isn't this or that or the other thing.
Yes.
Yeah, because our bodies are just attuned to certain...
and that's how the EMF detectors came into play, because people started realizing that, you get these things that create these weird fields, and sometimes you'll get idiot wiring going by plumbing and stuff like that, especially with the old lead piping, and it would radiate off that lead, and that lead would just become part of the atmosphere and everything. So that's when they started saying, okay, we need to be able to see if this is this or, and then somebody realized, hey, EMF detectors actually can detect spirits.
And like I have motion sensors all over my house.
Yeah.
And so there'll be times and there was Amber one time was here with me when it happened, when we were in here watching something. The cat was in my lap, so I know there's nothing else or anybody else in the house. And you could see first the one by the wall, then by the door, and then in the hall, and then by the other living room, and then the one that's in the hall where their old rooms used to be, which is that path that once everybody sees that shadow or the boy. And we were witnessing my motion sensors go off all the way to that side of the house. And there was nothing there because the only ones in the house were right there with us. And we followed it. We were watching it from, okay, go, okay, is it going to, oh, look where it's happening now. Look, and then over there and over there. So that's how motion sensors can help you detect things.
Right.
What do they key on?
Your ones.
Micro changes in
the atmosphere.
Molecular. Yeah. I always forget what that alien comment is from Aliens. Alien.
Or like FLIR guns and stuff were really come in useful. Because, I mean, people will use them for, because basically you need to be looking for, more of the time, you need to be looking for cold stuff.
Yes. But heat, cold, and any other spectrum, you have to be looking. I've used a FLIR gun outside before when we had the woods and stuff over here. Sometimes it's kind of spooky what you get a hit on out there in the woods. You don't know what it is, and I'm not going to go look. I'm not in the mood for it right now. And then I have, of course, my temperature gauge so that you can see real time. What the temperatures are changing. It uses laser.
Yeah, I have one of the laser pointer temp guns in my.
Yeah, that's what I have too. Real quick before you start, did you pick up anything? Did anything increase after Sandy up there? After y'all had that bad storm that it killed so many people?
That was south of us.
That was south of y'all?
That was New York, New Jersey, Long Island. That's like 6.5 hours away.
Did you hear of anything?
Got rain. No, we just got rain. I mean, so we didn't really. No, that was all bad stuff down there. And there were groups down that way who, had a bunch of weird stuff going on. But
because weather events seem to kick things up too.
Yeah.
But just before you start seeing a lot of activity, and then right after, it's almost like, especially if that area has suffered a trauma before, it kind of brings that whole trauma back up.
Right. I mean, yeah, that definitely does happen. But no, the only time we would get an increased bit of activity would be around certain times of the year, or if we get a really, really bad snowstorm. So that would be, I mean, and we don't get them like 2009, or no, was it 2007, 2008, that winter, we got dumped on. We got 8 feet of snow in like 12 hours or something, ridiculously fast. And, everybody was snowed in, and Sam Champion from ABC was out at the gas station just up the road from us standing on this 10-foot hill of plowed snow. And that really set off a little bit of activity around. And of course, we've got a lot of churches in the area. We've got like 10 churches in and around Mexico. So, things like Halloween and, basically end of October into November, those first few days, that stirs up a lot. So, but we've got one of the other ones. I sent the video to you guys. Vinny, you can post that if you want.
Okay.
With this, it's the Spy Island. I mentioned it.
Yeah.
Previously, historic site. Basically, it was a guy named Silas Town used that as a base of operation, and he became a big Union spy, and he was able to wander around this island because he knew it inside and out, and he was able to get close enough to the British encampments and the ships and stuff like that, where he was able to hear their plans and everything like that and convey it. And this was back up here. All they had was Native American slaves and a few black slaves, because that was, what was, I guess, available. You want to use that term. But so as a result of it, when he died, he was buried there. His grave is the only grave. It's like at the one far end of Spy Island, but there's this whole trail that goes close to what he used. And you can walk it, and you can get time distortions. You can get EVP. You can see shadow figures. You can get hot and cold spots. Even in the, dead of summer, it can be hot one second, cold the next, and it can just back and forth and bounce around. There's zones where it gets dead silent. I mean, literally, it's like you're walking into like a soundproof room.
Yeah, I've experienced that, where it's just like even the background and white noise is gone. It's like a vacuum.
I mean, it's like suddenly going deaf for a second or two.
Yeah.
And and there's of course it's an inlet for the Mexico Point, which goes out to Lake Ontario, of course, which is one of the Great Lakes and everything like that. So there's tons of water and everything. And with the water movement of water helps channel and direct and redirect, supernatural entities and things like that. And, but because there was so much different activity and all the slaves and everything like that, if you walk around with a recorder, you can literally just take a few steps and you don't even have to say anything, and you can get EVPs in several parts of it. And the EVP that I sent you, that my cousin Brian and I took, it literally, you have to really, he enhanced it in his studio to enough to where you could actually think. And it's a Native American tongue, but it's such a rare one that people are still trying to figure out what it is. And it's clearly a message, but nobody's been able to decipher it yet. And we're the ones that got that.
Interesting to play with it.
Yeah. So I mean, we've run it by a bunch of people over the years, and because we have the Onondaga Nation just south of Syracuse, and they're like the biggest tribe in this part of but there's other ones that are smaller ones, and it's not any of those. So
when you said the temperature inversion, it reminded me, we were coming back from the cabin that we used to go to. I forget what the name of the lake was. And I was driving. We were in my Delta 88, and it was Jan, Donna. I can't remember what that guy's name was. He hung out with us for a while, and he got in trouble with the police and took off. And a couple other people, and we were coming back from spending the day at the lake, and we just crested over a hill, and we're on the way down the hill, and all of a sudden the entire car got fogged up, all the glass instantly, all the way wrapping around the car, fogged up. But there was no fog, there was no temperature change that we could feel, because you roll down the window and it was same temperature,
right?
But we did feel like we went through a wall of something. And I remember everybody was screaming. I had to pull over because I couldn't see. I'm hanging out the driver's side window trying to make sure I don't run into another car head on. And then we had to run the heater. And it was a warm night. He defrost the windows to get the fog off. And we tried to wipe it. And it really wasn't wanting to wipe clean. It took me turning the vents on, and you could see it slowly dissipate. But something cold we went through, just did something to that glass. And it was all the way around. And I remember for a long time, every time we would drive through there, everybody go, "Oh, this is that place. This is that place." And they all seemed to want it to happen again. And I was like, man, I would rather it not happen again. I'm the one driving.
Yeah. There was that time we went to me, Anna, and her family went to Circle Lake, and we were walking around in the forest one night, just because we were bored. The Don and them were kind of asleep and stuff, and I was taking care of because Tom was just young, and so was Michael, and all of her cousins. So we were walking around, and Michael had his camcorder, and we're recording, and we were watching it back as we were walking back, because there was a train that would pass through the forest there. I mean, it was a train,
it was a train track.
Yeah.
Really?
So we didn't hear the train, but when we got back and watched the video, you could just hear this like growl in the background in the middle of us talking. We didn't hear anything like that at all. So I picked up something, but I gotta see if he has the clip. I could put that in here, but that was a really cool recent thing that happened, at least within the last 10 years.
I'm trying to remember. Okay, there's Lake Conroe, and then there's one that has a dam. What's that? At Lake Houston?
I think that's Lake Houston.
Yeah, I think that's where we're kind of, I know it was like a 2-hour drive from where we used to live in Houston, so it wasn't close. But I'm trying to remember, which one is the one by the state park? I have to look it up. I don't know.
I remember at the moment. That's out past over there by where Caleb lives, I think.
Yeah, it's about past Cleveland and stuff.
Slightly off topic. Apparently, the company Micron, they picked Syracuse as their next major business hub. They're bringing 9,000 jobs to the area.
Yeah, sadly, that's kind of, I don't mean to say sadly, what's happening up here, since they're building two new microprocessor plants up here. But it's bringing in a lot of work and everything that's changing. We have our first $1 million homes being built, but to me, they're not like what we considered $1 million homes in Houston, like around the River Oaks. These look more like, a $500,000 home that's costing $1 million. But we're talking about putting in a golf course. I think I was telling you about it yesterday. And I'm like, let's fix the roads first. Let's fix some of the other infrastructure issues before you put in a golf course. And they're trying to sell it as make it public so everybody can use it. And I'm like, okay, then who's going to pay for the upkeep on it and the maintenance? Is that going to get rolled into our taxes? Which our taxes went up after we had to pay for all the infrastructure from all the new subdivisions being built.
Yeah.
So every time there's progress, there's always a kind of a setback too.
Yeah. But yet they apparently it was Amazon, because Amazon built in one of the largest distribution facilities on the East Coast in the town of Clay, which is about 20 minutes from here. Mm-hmm. That's really attracting a lot of people.
Yeah, that's it. It's the reservoir for like Houston.
What's up, buddy? Okay, thank you. I love you. Oh. Yeah, so but yeah, no, remember, because I remember we used to do all the messing with the tapes, tape recorder, your micro tape recorder, and we'd get stuff
Yeah, I got more stuff on the micro tape recorder than I ever got on anything digital.
Yeah.
For some reason.
Yeah, I have several micro tape recorders because I absolutely, and you get all these younger things who are watching the TV. Oh, well, you're still using that stuff. You're still using that stuff. Yeah, because it works.
Remember, I had that big flat one like McCready uses in the thing, that you had to speak to the friggin' microphone that I had to carry with it. I remember using that one, and then you got one that was like a Walkman that you could record on, and then I mean, it was amazing that kids got the one that you could do your voice. Remember the little one that was all the rage one Christmas, and it had like a built-in microphone that off shot like this, and you talked into it, and then you could change the voice by changing the speed, and it had a distortion thing on it.
That was the one they released later on, but I remember the one I had the little cord that came off of it and the little handle, and I would sit there and make like little talk shows about video games and things because I wanted to do that, and it's like, what am I doing now? But yeah, I miss that thing. I'm gonna look and see what it was called. I don't remember. But yeah, no, I mean I didn't get to do a lot of the investigation stuff with you guys, but
I did my best to remember, I had a rule: keep it away from my family, keep it away from my home. As y'all got older, then y'all went and did some of the funner things with me. Amber was my pest. Amber was always wanting to go involved, and I was scared because I just knew she was going to befriend something and bring it home with us.
Yeah. Hey, look, Daddy, I got this new pet. Fucking.
It looks like a Wolverine with red eyes and
it's a gargoyle. Yeah. This looks like the creature from Creepshow.
Look, that looks scary. Instead of running away from it, she's the one running towards it. Oh, I got to go save her. I get to be the hero, even though I don't want to be.
It's like Elmira, with instead of regular animals, it's my sister with cryptids. You look cute.
I watched. Okay, go ahead, Colin.
I'm just saying, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this properly, but this is my investigation kit.
Okay.
Go ahead and tell your story, Vince. I'm just going to try and.
I was just going to say, I just watched Triffids with Alice not too long ago when she stayed with me for a week, and that was just like it for her. Your carnivorous plants, and then so I showed her the old black and white because we watched the miniseries. And the next thing I know, your sister's calling me and telling me that she's been drawing on her papers at school Triffids attacking people. Okay. And she was that was it for her. She was like,
who does that sound like, Dad?
Yay.
Because I was the film buff in the family because of you. I love horror, sci-fi, all that stuff. And I would sit there and draw it and talk about it and just want to know more about it. So it's like my niece is taking after us.
Because Amber didn't like to watch a lot of that stuff. She does now. It wasn't until she started reading some of the Anne Rice books and all the horror stuff that she really started getting into it. She's always been about the scary, spooky stuff, but she didn't really like watching the movies.
No.
All right. Let's see if I can. Puppy, you gotta look out. Hey, watch out.
Puppy, want a biscuit?
I have a very loyal dog who has to be less than 3 feet from me at all times. All right. This I call the interview box. I'll try and how much I can get into the camera here because I'm not on my phone. But I have, religious artifacts. I have flashlights, micro recorders, GPS. I wired it for power. I don't know if you can see the power strip there.
Yeah, power strip, yeah.
And the outside of it, so you can run it to an extension.
Yep. Yeah, so you can run an extension cord to a power outlet for it.
Right. Yep. So that way, if I need something else, because I have the larger cassette recorders and everything like that, I've got everything from glow lights. I have digital binoculars that actually take pictures. I have always have like 2 or 3 of these. The
micro recorders. Yeah.
I have a shortwave radio. I have weather radio. I have several different kinds of digital cameras and mini camcorders.
I need another weather radio. Digital, yep. That's one of the bigger ones.
It's an older model. I keep it in here because of the fact that it is an older model. I've got my thermometer gun.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Got this thing. It's a kid's toy. It's called Spytech. It's one of those ear magnifiers. Remember?
Oh, it amplifies the sound. Yeah.
Right. Remember how they used to have it look like a giant radar?
Yeah, because you can get one with the cone on it now. They still use those. The military has a version of it.
Right. But that's basically this in a little portable device. So you just clip it under your shirt and it enhances it like a 10 dB. Oh, so nice. If there's something, because it's analog technology, it works just like having a cassette recorder. So if there's something out there, you can actually have this in your ear and you can get it back later.
Yeah.
And if it's strong enough entity, you can actually hear it with this real time. And people look at that and they're like, well, that shouldn't work. And I'm like, well, it does. You know, I've got Bluetooth speaker. I've got portable black light for traces of stuff.
Yeah. You don't want to go look in teenagers' rooms with one of those.
No. Or old hotel rooms.
Yeah.
Don't ask me how I know that. You know,
as a matter of fact, when one of the first ones I ever bought was for when we went and we'd go to like amusement parks or go traveling for vacation. I was like checking the beds and everything and the pillows. I was like, you know, bring our own sheets, bring our own stuff.
Yeah, that's right.
Call the maid to come have her clean the room real quick before we
And then after I saw 4 bedrooms, or what is it? 4 bed, not 4 bedrooms. It's 4 rooms. I was always check under the mattress and the dead bodies under.
Yes. You know, I have this. This has actually been blessed.
That's a cord, right?
No, it's a ripcord one, but it's also been blessed.
Okay. Yeah.
So basically, what it is, it's like a level of protection.
Yeah.
See what else have I got here that's interesting. Grid paper.
So have you ever
UFO guide?
Have you ever ran into where when you ask somebody to do a blessing on something, they look at you like you're nuts?
Nope. Because at some point I got credentialed enough and learned the right rituals.
So you're doing your own blessings.
I do my own blessings.
Okay.
So it's one of those things where very few people would ever do it. There's a guy, his name, you probably heard the name, Bishop James Long.
Okay.
Okay, I've learned a few things from him over the years. You know. So I've got glow in the dark rosary, also blessed. That way you charge it up, you go in it, even if it's in the middle of the night. You can use it as a focal
you can always see it if you're in the dark.
Right. And it'll also give a good focal point for reference and camera and stuff like that.
Yeah. I haven't had a rosary in so long.
I've got several. I've got Benedictine medals. I've got condensed versions of the Bible. Lots of
I keep one in my truck. I have one that also has blessings. That's strictly blessings and prayers. And then of course the ones I got here at the house. Right.
And that's what the journal does, is I have all that stuff in the journal. Plus I'm putting together. I have been working on a book about the history of exorcisms and rites and rituals from various religions and non-religious, like witchcraft and stuff like that. Going to be every possible variation. Plus it's going to be stories in the media and everything, but it's going to cover the whole history of it.
I've got a hard drive that if I can ever get it up and draw stuff off it, to actually two of them, because I've had two computers where I just had tons of research, and eventually you lose the system and you save the hard drive to hopefully pull off the data.
Are they the old? Are they the old multi-pin? Or
they're the old multi-pins. They're the big ones. I'm talking old ones.
Right. Okay.
And then I have a lot of them from the laptops and stuff that I keep just because I have so much data on them. And I have a case that I just interchange them in whenever I want to draw something from it.
So, Colin,
yes.
What was one of your hardest cases to deal with?
Probably one of the exorcism ones. Those are the ones I have a hard time talking about. Yeah. Not just because they're difficult to deal with and they really take a toll on you, but it's one of those. For me, it's. I'm trying to figure out how to put this. When I do a case of any kind, okay, I don't go just to get the notoriety of it, things like that. Yeah. In fact, very little of what I've done has ever, this is the most I've ever talked about it, honestly, outside of, being with a couple of other groups, yeah. When you get with other groups and stuff like that, and you're trying to stab yourself. Okay. Like now there are groups out there that know that if certain things happen, they can call me. I can walk them through things over the phone. And if I can get to them, I will get to them. Because I don't go in to just get data and evidence and stuff. I go in to resolve.
Right.
And sometimes that carries a big toll and it carries a lot of weight. And some of the stuff will stick with you for the rest of your life. Because I've seen,
as Ernie Hudson said, I've seen stuff that'll make you turn white.
Mm-hmm. It just, I've seen facial distortions. I haven't seen the head spin around, but I've heard plenty of stories about that.
Now
I've seen people throw up. I've seen manifestations of just, little bitty children getting massive.
This is where I'm going to leave the room. I can't stand when children are in danger.
And
that's the thing that
a large amount of my cases revolve around helping kids or helping families with little kids because I don't even think twice about it. I don't weigh the risk of what happens to me. I go and I get the job done.
Have you ever you said facial distortions and that popped a thing into my people who just don't look right. It's almost like you see them and then later somebody go, hey, can you describe them to me? It's like a blank in your head.
Yes.
Like they were blocking you from actually seeing what they look like.
Yes.
I've experienced that. And then the whole idea of the mimics, not just the mimics who are voices, but doppelgangers.
Black-eyed kids.
Oh, don't bring that up. Don't bring that up. Man,
all right.
Vince is always trying to bring that stuff up with me.
No, because I love hearing about it.
But I know you do, but I don't.
All right, Vince, go la la la.
Yeah, I'm off the mic.
La 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 la.
One of the hot.
Listen to you, Jeffrey.
Okay, Vinny.
Yeah.
Up near Tyler and up north where he is.
I know.
That's one of the hot spots for black-eyed kids.
Yeah, and that's one of the things he hates talking about.
I've consulted with those. I've consulted on some of those, and I was asked to actually come down and be a part of an investigation on one, and I wasn't able to get away to do it. And that was, I don't know, that was 5-6 years ago.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you're good, Dad. You're good.
Okay. You can.
Okay, I'm coming back. All right. Nope. Nope.
Okay. It just when you get to this part, when you go the watch back playback.
Yeah, I'm gonna skip
15
over this
seconds.
part.
15 seconds.
Yeah.
You only need to go like 45 seconds.
Yeah,
I'll
it's
do
not
the
that
la la
long.
la
Not even
la
a
la
minute.
la 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 kind of thing.
Or go get a drink or something, or
So here's
chase a cat, whatever.
have you because you know that like normally whenever there's supernatural or the extraterrestrial cases, there's
Right.
usually something to do with the Men in Black showing up.
It's rarer than they talk about.
Okay.
A lot of people are willing to throw that out there so quickly, but it's only the only time something like that happens, or truly happens, if it's a mass incident of some kind.
I was just reading about it, one of the earliest incidents, and they didn't even call them the Men in Black at that time. It was in a small town it was in Alaska that witnessed an event, and the military guy who was there investigating, he was like saying, "Hey, look, something happened here." And then all of a sudden he gets interviewed. These men show up, and then and in the interview, they're telling him, like, "No, that's not what happened. This is what happened." And they did that with everybody who witnessed it. And that's when I really think it's a Men in Black thing. You know, some people say the Men in Black are aliens and they're coming to help hypnotize you and cover you up. Or they say, "Oh yeah, I'm going to bring up the Men in Black to justify my story." It's when they actually show up and you start having them pick apart your life and trying to do everything they can to make you be quiet.
Well, yeah, there's the footage. There's footage you can find online with guys that are, you see them like walking into a hotel or an office building and then leaving.
And they used to do it back when the CIA was doing the drug experiments, when they were giving people LSD to watch their reactions. They would come in and cover all that stuff. Cover that stuff up as well. So there is an organization, I actually believe, that comes in and shuts down any kind of media or news coming out of something. Hell, we do it. We see it happen all the time.
All the time, yeah. Well, because like you had what was it, Bob Lazaro, or talking about the fact that he was visited by him. Colin, do you see something, Colin? You're like looking at the camera.
No, I'm pulling up multiple screens here while.
Oh, okay. Like you went whenever we were saying stuff.
No, yeah, I was like, yeah. No, you must be seeing the thing behind me.
No, I would go. You might want to turn around or something, or make sure it's recording or something. But no, I'm pulling multiple screens while I'm doing this because I'm going through and I'm finding the PDF, and because the book 1 was actually finished and book 2 was a compendium for it, which I actually got finished as well. But
you're self-publishing, right?
I would like to get it published one way or another if I can self-publish, but I can. They're fully done and ready to go as far as like ebooks go. So
yeah, because that would be my first suggestion is putting them up as ebooks. Yeah. And then
I think it's pretty easy to put them up on Amazon, like through their.
There's a few hurdles you got to go through with it.
Yeah, nothing is as easy as you think. Trust me. No, we searched through a lot of ways trying to get our comic published, and I was seeing, and a lot of it has to do with money, because we were seeing some comics that were far more inferior than ours that were actually getting promoted and published, and that just used to drive me nuts.
Oh, I know.
Because what always freaks me out is like, you know where my TV is in the living room, and how you can see everything that goes on around you. Everything reflects as long as the kitchen light is on. And like you're sitting here watching a movie and you're relaxing, and you see something walk up behind you, and you go, "I'm in the house by myself. I don't know if I want to turn around." And then you look down, and my cat's like going, "You're like, I really don't want to turn around right now. Can't you go haunt the kids next door?" For a while there, I was having, man, it was 2-3 o'clock in the morning. Somebody was knocking on my door all the time at night. And
Dave's not here, man.
I used to have lights on that were outside, and for some reason it all burnt out. Got it fixed. We got the wiring replaced, and then when we had the last freeze, it blew them all out again. So I have no. Yeah, let me tell the public I can't see what's going on outside. I have lights. I've put new ones in, so just there. But it one night somebody broke into my truck. The police came by, saw my door open and the light on. That's why I started parking in the back and not up in the front where I had the lights that would kick on floods if anybody even walked by my truck. And they come knocking on the door. So I've got my gun and I'm like, who is it? And they're like, it's Van Alstyne Police. I'm like, can I see a badge? Can I walk around to my window so I can see you? And they showed me, and then I opened the door and I'm like sticking it in the back of my pants so they don't see what I got in my. And I said, I'm letting you know I've got my handgun. It's legal and everything. And I said, I'm gonna go put it over on the table so that y'all don't freak. And they were like, hey, we understand it's late, but your door is open and your light's on because the door is open. And so we walked out. My glove compartment had been gone through. I had a little between the seats. I have a little flip up thing. It had been gone through. And I was like, man, I locked that. When I parked, I locked it. And my alarm never went off. And I was like, how's that possible? And they were like, well, a lot of stuff happens. And so while they were here, I locked it and I walked in, and then they drove off. And they said, we'll come back by and see if, we're going to look around the neighborhood and see anybody's walking around. They come back and they're knocking on my door again. And they're like, your light's on again. And we go out, look at it. It's locked. Nobody's in it. Just the lights on in the interior. So opened the door, flipped it off, shut it, locked it again. And they were like, well, we're on shift till 5. We'll keep coming through, I was like, okay. And I came back in the house. And, but those late night knocks, man, when they ring the bell. I have a weird sounding doorbell. So it's not like a regular ding dong or, one of those.
Mm-hmm.
So I always know when it goes off, and I'll be asleep, and then all of a sudden it go off, and I go, did I hear the doorbell? And I'm getting up and walking towards the door, and it do it again. And you go, who is it? And there's nobody answering. You go walk to the one side window where you can see the left side, the right side of the door, and then walk around to the kitchen, which is, not kitchen, that big dining bay window, but you can't really see much of the front door there. And I can't see anybody. I'm like, step back so I can see you. Nobody there. I ain't opening my door. There's been once or twice where I've called one of you guys and said, hey,
yes,
somebody's messing with my door.
Stay on the line while I'm
I stay on the line. I got my shotgun and I've got it round chamber and I'm ready. And I open the door and there's absolutely nobody there. And I will walk out and look and then come back in and shut the door and then go put my gun up and then go lay down, let y'all guys go. And that just as I'm about to go back to sleep again, it does it freaking again. Man, those are the nights I hate the most.
Well, and that's why you don't like talking about that particular subject we mentioned a little bit ago.
Yes. Yeah, because we've seen
that.
And I'm like,
I know,
man, you blink at me, I'm going to give you a whole new ventilation, because if you stare at them too long, everything I've read about them, they can actually mess with your head.
Yeah, it messes.
Yeah, and then once they've got their power over you, you're at their mercy. People, I don't know if people know what we're talking about or not, but it's pretty messed up.
We can get into that crypto stuff at some point, at least without Dad on the episode, or at least he can.
I don't mind the crypto stuff.
I know.
But I know people who were part of the forestry ranger service, and they worked nights and saw some pretty friggin' weird stuff. I remember when we used to go out to the lakes with my dad and go fishing. You see some pretty weird stuff. And then some of those houses, the outhouses where you went to the bathroom, So you've got one old-fashioned light in this rinky-dink house that you're renting, and you got to walk a path, about 10, 15 feet from the house and go into an outhouse that the door barely stays on, and there's spiders everywhere, and you're wondering, is there a snake in the damn hole that I'm about to put my butt on? And then you're in there, and then you hear on the wood. You're like, nope, nobody's home.
Helps you do your business a little faster.
Yeah, because it's like you are done. It's like, and it's it. Okay,
occupied. Move along.
Squeeze, run.
Yeah.
And I mean, some of those lakes we were on, there were big gators in it too. We'd be going on a flatboat, and my dad would flashlighting around. What are you looking for, Dad? See all them, and all of a sudden you see the eyes.
Yeah, all the eyes. Yeah.
And he's like, oh, gators. And what used to upset me was that they were trout lines, where you run a trout line across the river or the stream or the lake, and you've got it hanging low in the water. So you're reaching down over the boat, pulling up this line. And if you feel a tug, you're hoping it's a fish, not a turtle or something else. And I can't tell you how many, I was like inches away from the water, just the horrors that would just pop into my head of coming, that was going to come out when I pull it, and I'd be, oh, it's a fish. Oh yeah, yes.
Creature of the Black Lagoon. No, kick, get off the boat.
Man thing.
Well, yeah. And then you have, because I grew up in San Antonio, you had all the lore, the Hispanic lore, the Lechuza, the Brujas, and all the other things. And you talked about that with your friends, and then when you're in that situation, all of them pop in your head at that time. And oh man, when Calaveras Lake, me and Art, man, sitting on my dad's boat overnight, and this big white owl bothering the crap out of us for like 4 hours. And I was like, man, you know what this is, right? And he was like, don't say it. Don't say it. It's like, it is. Why is it bothering us? We were laying here having a good time, and then all of a sudden it flies across the lake and lands right on the branch by the boat we're in, and then starts dinking with us all night. And then a storm hit. Not only did we have that, and it wouldn't leave us, it would, if it flew away, it would come back over the boat. And then we had the two water moccasins trying to get in the boat with us. And then finally it settled down, it got quiet. We went up, walked across the pier, went up to the where the Coke machine was at the little restaurant, grabbed drinks, and we're coming back down. Beautiful sky, not sun, but the moon and the stars. And you're like, man, it's just great out here. Nice, cool breeze coming through. All of a sudden, we're sweating, and we're like, why is it so hot? Man, it's hot. And then all of a sudden, where'd all the clouds come from? And then this torrential rain drowns us, and we climb up under the front of the boat where the anchor and all the life jackets and the ropes and everything were, and make a nest in there to get out of the rain. And then there were like little bitty holes, because it was an old game warden boat that my dad bought and refurbished. So the water would puddle and it'd run in those holes, and it'd just be like drip, 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 drip. And it wouldn't be somewhere where you go, okay, no, it's right on your forehead, right by your eye, in your ear. Hart kept getting it in the ear. He's like, man, he goes, I want to go home, but I don't want to get out from here. Yeah. And then you hear the screams and the screeches, and from coming from across the lake and everything, and there's nothing out there. Even there was a power plant there that was on the far side, but you never heard any. You could hardly hear any of the machinery coming out of there. But good fishing was over there because the water was warm, and but you catch a lot of big catfish and stuff over there. Yeah, but I always hated being on the river, the lakes.
There was remember that was about a month ago, or no, it was probably 2 months ago. I was coming home after working really late at the job. I was talking to you, and I saw from like there was a spot in between TC Jester and Ella where there was just a spot where there was an office building, and that whole section was just black, like the power was out. And then I was driving by, and I just see this shadow dude. I mean, this just guy just standing there. I couldn't make out any kind of like thing off of him other than the fact that he was just standing there in the darkness looking at the highway. I don't know if it was just this dude just sitting there doing something, or I was seeing something on the highway. It was just really creepy because it was like he was just standing there in that spot of the section that was completely black and dark.
Oh, you remember the driving home from Best Buy there when we lived in the mobile home. You can tell your audience that story.
Which one? The
one with the guy walking down the middle of the road, and as he passed each one of the street lights.
Oh, I totally forgot about. Holy crap! I totally forgot about that. Because it was me who was coming home.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. You.
Holy shit! Yeah, holy.
I remember you were like scared when you got home,
holding out on us. Come on.
So yeah, I used to do when I worked at Best Buy. I used to do merch. So, well, no, as this is after merch. This is because I was working at that one. I was doing every Monday night before Tuesday releases, we would stay there late to set up the ads, all the new releases, movies, and everything, and the video games, and kind of get everything set up for people to come in the next day. I remember stopping and I think grabbing like something to eat on the way home, and I'm driving down Beltway 8 heading towards Allen Genoa, and there's this dude way in the distance walking down the street, literally in the middle of the road. And as he's walking, the lights are just going out. And I'm like, what the hell? And so I was like, and he got to my, to the street I was going to turn on to go down, back to where, where the trailer was. And I was like, hell no. So I turned down Crenshaw, a street before, and went up that. And I could just see the light go out in the distance in the back as I was driving away, because I was looking at the mirror because I didn't know if he was going to be following this way or what. And got home. I was like looking around, making sure I was good, because it was like, I mean, we would be there sometimes as late as 2 a.m. trying to get things set up for the next day. Because we close at 10, and then we'd be there till maybe 12, 1 o'clock in the morning. So I wouldn't get home until, just before 2. And I totally forgot about that. That just completely slipped my mind.
Well, I remember you come tearing into the house and you're like, Dad, lock the door. You're screaming. And remember that right there, that road had so many people died at that corner. Mm-hmm. We'd be sitting there watching TV or doing something and hear the wreck and run out. Call people, hey, call an ambulance. And then because it was right on the cusp of 2 different counties, they'd argue over who was supposed to come out. And while they're arguing, somebody could be dying, and then the real bad one was the guy who flipped his little convertible and he flew out of the car and the girl spider webbed into the windshield and went through it. God. And
well, there was that one, and there was the one that with the guy with the red. You weren't there. We were just sitting here, and we're playing something, and we hear just a crash, and me and I think Amber and Andrew was over, or somebody, one of my friends was over, and we looked outside, and you just see this nice red Corvette just completely almost just blew apart. The guy was okay. We got him up and got him out of there. We called the cops to bring something out. But there was just parts of it everywhere. And he had just turned that corner and lost traction of the street, mm-hmm. hit the ditch and just went bam, bam like this. And then it
Yeah, it was because that street was slick, and so if you had any dew or any moisture on that road, people always took it too fast. Or remember, some people, because you were coming this way and it was tight, and you had somebody that would come around you because it going the opposite direction. And sometimes they drive those people because they're not in their lane completely, and it would drive somebody off the road. There was a guy in a pickup that we had to go help. There was a lady in a car with her kids. I mean, I just got tired of that corner, and I was like, man, why can't y'all do something? Put a flashing light at the corner. And I remember a lot of us got together and they said, well, before we can put a stop sign, we put a light or anything, there has to be so many people die before it will they'll warrant they put it up. And I was like, you mean how? So it was like 10 people, I think, is what they told us. And I was like, you got to be kidding me. 10 people have to die right here in front of my house before you're going to do anything about it. Oh God, I hated that. But we saw, remember that one, the place that was right by us that had the big tire fire that burned for months, and you just saw this orange glow in the background. I was like, man, yeah, that's really gonna, help our health, some 10 years down the road. But man, in that swing off in the field on that one tree by itself, and at night you'd hear it swinging, the sound of that chain swinging, and you'd be like, look out there, and it's just moving by itself.
We'd have to
And
look
there's
through Ember's.
no
We'd have to look through
wind. Ember's room.
Ember's room to be able to see it.
And then you'd hear kids laughing and playing out there, and you're like, it's friggin' midnight. What is kids doing out? You open the door and there's no kids out there.
Yep.
But that was about as scared as I've ever seen my son was that night. He was really shook up on that one.
I totally forgot. I literally totally forgot about that. It's been so long because that was, I mean, what, 2004?
Yeah, so 2000 like, probably. 2004.
Because it was before we moved from the trailer to the house. Before I started dating Anna. So, because I think, Amber wasn't even pregnant with Logan at the
when
time.
We first moved into the house, we thought there was some kind of creature in the backyard, and because you'd hear all kinds of noises and stuff, and we'd look and he would be gone. And then that one night I flipped on, I go, I hear it. So I just walked over and flipped on the light real quick, and it was a family of raccoons that were living under our shed back there. And they would play in the backyard at night. And I was like, it's been raccoons this whole time, but they just come up. You're sitting there watching TV, and if that blind was open, all of a sudden they're like got their hands and paws against the window, and you got eyes, and you're like, man, I feel like I'm being. Oh, it's you guys. They're just, hey, let us in. What you got? Is that chips?
Well, and sadly, the house with it had that weird glass atrium that was in
the center.
In the center of the house.
In the dining room. Yeah, and it went up to the outside. So you're like, anything could fly out over my house, land, and have just a pane of glass getting into the house. And Stu grew those banana trees in there that kept growing and dying. And I
was surprised there was no spiders in that area.
Oh yeah, I know. I always planned to do something with it, but I never wanted to go in there.
Man,
it's just unusual. But remember that a lot of that guy who designed a lot of those homes in that one subdivision did experimental home design.
Yes, he did.
So he had weird looking houses all up and down that area.
Mm-hmm. Colin, anything you want to add another story, or
trying to think of another one that I could.
So,
I'm trying to come up with something where it can be interesting enough to be told, but without
saying the details.
Yeah.
Well, okay. So there's the 5 things for the pros of what you do.
Right.
Have you tell us an instance of? We've already kind of gotten one of the exorcism in the previous episode. I've
seen two UFOs. one dish shape, one cigar shape. Okay. And tried to follow up with all that stuff. And then, being in touch with MUFON, Mutual UFO Detection Network.
Mm-hmm.
I've dealt with, occult cases, and people were, Vince and I, we grew up during the time of the great satanic panic.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
And
Everything.
once in a while that will rear its ugly head again, and people will, especially nowadays, there's a lot more Wiccan and pagan and stuff like that going on. A lot of people returning to the Mother Earth thing. And once in a while, you'll start hearing stories about, oh, this is this, and this is satanic, and and in some cases they'll point out where it's like biblical against witchcraft, things like that. And
yeah, because we grew up in where there was a lot of Bible Belt stuff, and they would, anything that had a ghost in it was considered evil. So like if you watch Casper, you shouldn't be watching that because that's got a ghost, and ghosts are evil. And it's like, why are ghosts evil? If you believe there's life after death, then you believe in a spirit. And if you believe in a spirit, should be able to believe that some don't move on, and or some get trapped here, and some actually go to heaven, some go to purgatory, and some go to hell.
right.
Depends on whatever your Catholicism is.
Yeah.
But I remember people friends we had that we'd go to church with, or I went to church with, and they couldn't even like go out for Halloween, or they couldn't, if it had like a witch, then it was evil. And man, God forbid you mention that you play D&D,
yeah,
or listen to certain music,
Kiss. Oh God, that's stupid.
Oh, not
No,
just
I know,
Kiss,
I know,
but
but there was you think about people that were like, just because the acronym, like,
keep people coming up with
what
it actually meant, and they sat there and tell you, no, it actually means this.
Yes, and you're like, well, no, yeah, I know.
Yeah.
But yeah, the remnants of that stuff still come back once in a while. It tries to recycle itself.
Everything does. I think everything goes through.
Nothing new under the sun.
No.
And it just. So over time, I've investigated basically the 5 categories. I've looked into some crypto stuff because we have things up here that kind of wander around. And
I was going to say, New York State has quite a bit.
We've got a couple of vortex spots up here. Like Poughkeepsie's got one, and then there's a couple places up north that have got some interesting stuff going on, and we've got, weird creature sightings up in the Adirondacks.
Mm-hmm.
And we've got, stuff works its way up from the Poconos, from Pennsylvania up into the southern tier, and a lot of it is just, people, unfortunately, because of the advent of paranormal TV shows, people automatically, they're looking for the boogeyman under every rock and around every corner. And a lot of the times it'll be like, oh, well, I can go do this or I can go do that. And then no, if you want to go out and learn about the stuff and investigate it, great. But if you're just going to go out there and say, well, I can do what Zach Bagans does. No, I'm sorry. Zach Bagans may have been a pioneer in the field for as far as the TV stuff goes, but there's a lot of times the man is just an idiot. I'm sorry. The man is just, he's done so much harm, and in the long run, basically his whole goal all along the way was to be able to build up enough resources and funds to start his own museum, which he's done in Las Vegas.
Yeah,
which a lot of them do.
And he's got a lot of the haunted artifacts, and he's got people, like Robert the Doll, and he tried to get Annabelle, and he's got all these things in this one place, and he wonders why he's got so many weird things going on all the time, and screaming at ghosts. No, you don't need to do that stuff, you freaking moron. So
Amber used to know a couple. They're out of the States. They were in Europe.
mm-hmm.
And I think the husband died.
Yeah,
I can't remember which one. It was the husband. And they would talk about all types of things, and they would try to educate people in the proper way to do parapsychology and spiritualism and things like that, and try to debunk the celebrity part of the whole thing, and that's what that's what we need, is more people who are willing to teach and help people, instead of trying to find another way to make a buck off of it,
sensationalizing it.
Sensationalism. But while we're all talking about this, we've got scientists working on things that are far worse.
Oh yeah.
See, AI is as scary as it gets.
Yeah. The AI, the CERN stuff that can actually,
creating a black hole on Earth that would
micro black. The fact is that they do believe they've created micro black holes, and if you give a micro black hole something enough to eat on, it will become a larger black hole. Can you imagine if one ever got on the planet and the great thing is they don't survive long. But when they happen, one day, if we get one that actually lingers long enough to get to feeding, we're in trouble. Just the space debris that we have in space is getting to the point where it's going to landlock us on Earth, because it'd be too dangerous for space travel. There's just so much we keep doing wrong that is going to come back and bite us in the ass, and then we're all worried about spirits.
Yeah. So I mean, it's things like that, like the CERN and everything like that. You could rip open the possibility, because I've discovered that a large amount of people believe in the concept of the multiverse, or alternate.
Most people who do quantum physics believe that there are at least 11 alternate realities.
Right, but as far as by and large, just people in general, throughout the years, I have found a lot of people believe in the concept of it. And when you start hearing about things like again, CERN, I keep harping on it, but you get something like that, they can rip open. You can rip open tear the fabric between two of them and have crossover. Thing is, you're not just ripping open that fabric between the two universes. You're ripping through the veil, okay, between the real world, the supernatural world, the corporeal versus the etherical, and the higher or lower beings. And something like that, could be catastrophic or apocalyptic or whatever.
Who's to say it hasn't already been and let certain things through? We've always believed about the veil, and we've always believed, even all the way back to the pagan rituals, that at certain times of the year, certain planetary alignments, the veil becomes thinner, and things are able to transfer through.
Right.
So, and then we have so many people that disappear off the face of the earth every year.
Oh yeah.
And then stories of people showing up and with no identification of who they are.
Yeah. And then of course you got things like the Bermuda Triangle and the Bridgewater Triangle.
Alaskan Triangle, the Japanese Triangle. They're all over the place. I was just reading recently where that they believe that for the first time in I don't know how many decades, 2024, 2025 maybe, that the hole that's in the ozone layer, that's over the Arctic, that comes back every year, will close permanently. And I always wonder about that hole. And then the experiments we were doing with what is that place that DARPA built, where they've got all those high-powered antennas that point up and they shoot electricity into the sky. And they call it weather. They're doing weather
manipulation.
Huh?
Weather manipulation stuff.
Well, that's what some people call
it.
But they say it's for doing things with the Earth's magnetic sphere, checking the strength and all of that. Right. But every time that they fire it off, we end up with weird weather events or something happening. Mm-hmm. And now I'm going to have to look it up because I used to know the name of this place. Like, seems like the minute you get online, you can become dumb.
Well, and then you were talking also, Dad, about the, there's certain things that happen around like certain events in time.
The HARP facility.
Okay, yes.
Yeah.
The HARP facility.
The HARP facility around McKinney. Sure.
Not in McKinney. If there were one here in McKinney, I'd be really worried. Y'all go ahead. It thinks I said heart, so it's talking about all the heart hospitals up here.
So no, you were talking to me the other day about how the fact that like usually whenever there's an event about to happen, things kind of get crazy around the world.
Oh yeah, there's clear indicators.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, just before something big event is going to happen, we have multiple experiences going around the world, and here's one thing. Russia and Kiev and Ukraine and other places are reporting UFOs again. And every time we come close to a nuclear war or nuclear testing and things like that, there's always this uptick in sightings.
Yeah.
So what does that bode for them? What bothered me was when they were seeing them over the power plant that was damaged.
Yes.
And so some people believe the ships come in and harness that radiation, that they're there waiting for the event to happen so they can draw power off of it, or they're there to witness a certain event in time. So I was like, man, okay, what does that mean for this place? Is this place more damage than we suspect? And it's going to be that's why the Russians turned it over so quickly. When they're holding on to something as a blackmail tool or something like that, they don't let go. They don't just give up without a reason. And they got out of there really quickly. And then 2 days later, we find out that they're having to pump in fuel and stuff to keep the generators running, to keep the dang plant from melting down. They didn't leave because we're going to do this because we were trying to make peace. No, they were getting out because they didn't want to be in ownership of it when it melted down. They wanted to be able to blame somebody else. Mm-hmm. Oh, the Americans and the Ukrainians and the UN came in and tried to fix it. They caused it.
Well, because there was all the reports that after the tsunami in Japan around those towns, there was a lot of ghost activity after that.
Oh, Indonesia too.
Mm-hmm.
Indonesia has some pretty weird ghost stories. There's that what's the giant ghost that goes around and eats the other spirits? And so it shows up when there's a lot of spiritual activity. And then there's what is the country that has the wall where the dead are buried in this cliff face? And there's like just lumps stuck onto the cliff, and it's all the dead. That's how the way they bury their people. And they say that you see that cliffside light up at night. Sometimes it just sparkles like lights, and that's the souls, being around their dead bodies. That's just putting that out there. I don't remember the country it's in. It's called the High Frequency Active Auroral Research Program.
Yep.
And I've been reading about that thing since I was in school.
Yeah, Art Bell used to talk about it a lot.
A lot, yeah. And a lot of the technology that went there is derived. Everything we have is derived from Tesla, whether they want to admit it or not.
Yeah. They ripped him off. They cleaned him out, and he was.
Well, when he died, they came in and seized all of his work.
Well,
and then the
that was the
family
remaining
had to,
stuff that he had working on
yeah,
at the time, but they'd already taken it.
well, he had a file room that had tons of all of his research. They came and cleaned it out before the family even got to come in. And then once the family started suing the government to try to get it back, it was piecemeal to them. You know, we'll give you this piece right now. We're going to give you this. Why were we going through it? And then all of a sudden we had this burst of patents in the United States. You know, the same thing kind of happened after World War II when we brought all the Nazis scientists to the Britain and other countries, Russia, all of us grabbed the best of their best and brought them here and put them to work for us. You know, forget the fact that they killed and tortured so many people.
Well, and then that, it's the So you think that, like, I know Dad's always worried about Yellowstone going off, but it's
I'm part of the network that monitors that, just because they allow you to publicly go onto their site and you can look at it. And the spike in mini earthquakes and the recent activities, they just had a bunch of hikers and boaters get sick.
Yeah.
There. And I'm believing it's some more, because they've had big, massive die-offs because of poisonous gases that seep out of the ground, and they get into the valleys and low ground, wipe out buffalo, deer, and you name it. Well, these are hiking trails and bodies of water that are supposed to be safe, and they're getting sick. Means they're ingesting or breathing in something that's making them sick.
Right.
I remember when a couple of years ago they were afraid that there would be an eruption, but because of the way the tectonic plates move around, and it was probably more like over a decade ago, they actually cut it. Sometimes the ranges cut off the plate and just stop an eruption from happening, but it keeps building up under the ground. The magma pools keep building up underground, and right now they're at their peak. So there's something going on there. I don't know what it is. Will it erupt now? I have no idea.
Well, as long as we're not seeing any alien activity over there, we're okay.
It's not a matter of if, it's when.
It's just when. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we're not seeing a lot of alien activity, so we're okay for right now, right?
Yeah.
Because you remember, we do know that whenever volcanoes erupt, there is some kind of like energy spikes, and there's you would have like a lot of radiation, stuff that's in the core of the planet that's being
when you prior to like major earthquakes and prior to volcanic eruptions, you see a lot of what people describe as ball lightning or orbs, glowing orbs. And so I haven't heard that much about that happening in Yellowstone, but if you look at the massive radius that explosion is going to take out, it's frightening.
Oh yeah, I think I would be okay from what I saw on the projector, but like I don't think you would not be where you're at in just Texas, because I'm so
the problem, we won't get the plastic cloud.
No,
we aren't going to get the cloud of fire.
But we definitely feel the shock wave.
But we're going to feel the shock wave. It's going to cause tectonic plate shifting, and we're going to get a massive ejection of material into the atmosphere that could cool the atmosphere way down and stop all plant growth for years.
Yeah, you definitely have another potential ice age, because you think about how massive that buildup for Yellowstone is.
Well, there's 3 chambers, and there's a fourth one that they haven't really been able to get a good image of. And I was just watching somebody talking about it the other day, that's their focus now, and they do know is that there's a rise and it sinks and it rises and it sinks, but if anybody were to tell you they know when a volcano is going to go off, they're lying. You can't. We don't have anything. that we have clues, we have things that as they build up, okay, this is getting more and more and more dangerous, then you better start heeding the warnings. But we don't even have a plan for what would happen if that happened, you know.
Look what happened in what Europe, like what 5 years ago, where all of Europe got covered in.
Oh, when when they had to stop all the airplanes and the flights,
most of Europe got covered by the ash and the fallout from it.
You know, we're worried about an asteroid. There's still plenty of stuff that Mother Earth can give us. You know, I used to love George Carlin's comment. You know, one day she's just going to shake us off like an old dog gets rid of ticks. It amazes me that we're hearing people talking about inner Earth again, though, that the Earth is hollow, that it could be civilizations and tunnels. And part of that, I think, played into, you know, the psyche, because, you know, that's one of the things they played up on King Kong versus Godzilla, you know. And I remember, was it Shackleton who flew over? Who was it? Bird? I can't remember which one it was. That flew over and swore he saw a big entrance to an underground cave, and that it was warm air coming out, so it had grassy area and there were animals and stuff. You know, God, I used to be into that stuff. And we didn't have an internet. We had to go to libraries to read these books. You had to get magazines. I remember Time Life did this whole thing on hidden universes, magic, witchcraft.
The 50-volume series thing.
Yeah, and I had like 10 or 12 of them.
I have a couple of those.
And I love those books. I read them until they were, you know, dog-eared, in the hardbound, you know, and they had like a material covering, but you drop them or bend them or they fall off the bed or table and bend them up. And I remember my mom going, "You don't take care of them. Why should we buy you anymore?" I said, "You should be happy I'm reading this stuff." And then if you tried to talk about it in school, people looked at you like you were crazy.
Right.
Well, Dad, I know that you would do the whole just researching some of the government experiments and stuff from stuff around the world. And I remember
until I started getting into stuff I shouldn't be in, and then I started getting weird. They weren't emails because we used to use message boards back in the day, but, you know, warnings, and you need to quit, you know, snooping around and asking questions. And I was like, well, why is a question dangerous? Since when is a question dangerous?
Yeah. Because knowledge is danger to people that don't want you to have the knowledge.
But then I had y'all to worry about. So I always became, you know, afraid that somebody would try to get to me to get to you. And it's not like I think I was important. I was just asking questions that, you know, like some of the CIA assassinations that were going on, why reporters who would be researching something would be found on dead-end roads with hoses stuck in their window, like they tried to commit suicide when they were planning on having a meeting with somebody and didn't make the meeting. And the whole reason why they realized they were missing is they didn't show up for the meeting, and then they do this statewide search for them and find them dead, you know. And then when political people who started wanting to reveal things would end up dead, then, you know, it sparks you into looking and researching and stuff. But everything comes with a cost. You got to be careful what you get into, even if it's accidentally.
Well, and then you have to also fact check everything. Well, no, you need to make sure you double check what you're getting, because we're at this point now where it's like there's so much nonsense out there that it leads you off on a rabbit hole that doesn't actually benefit you, what you're trying to find out about.
What did I always tell you? Find out what the agenda is of the person that's telling you something. You know, people do things for a reason, you know, and so somebody's saying, it's like Carl Sagan said, you know, extraordinary claims requires extraordinary evidence. So make them back up what they're telling you.
Mhm.
You know, look for you know what? Look for it yourself, but make sure that it's a reputable source, you know, and see if you're getting it from multiple reputable places, you know, because what I can't remember, somebody once said that how you disguise something is you have somebody who's trustworthy lie, and then you have somebody who is untrustworthy tell the truth about something, and that what is the way you create disinformation, because there's a difference between disinformation and misinformation. Disinformation is intentional. Misinformation comes from ignorance. So you always got to take everything with a grain of salt. Don't believe everything you're told.
Right.
You know, do your own due diligence. But when you end up with more questions and you do answers, there's something there.
Mhm.
You know, because I loved the story of the Eldridge from before John Carpenter.
Yeah.
Before I even knew what it was. The first time I ever heard about it was in a Warlord comic book, and he found the Eldridge, and there was some of the story was in there, and I was like, man, what is this? And I ate up anything I could find about it, and that led to Project Rainbow. It led to the what was after Rainbow? I can't remember. Um, and then the other place, the base. We just talked about it the other day. Like I said, my file system is messed up. It doesn't work right anymore. What's that old base up there on the island? That's a state park now, but you can't actually go. But I'm part of it. Used to have a military base. It's where they supposedly punched a hole through reality using the same tool that they used to use when they tried to get viewers. You know, and the military put a lot of money into people who could see, you know, would travel astrally.
Viewing and stuff.
Yeah. I can't remember because they took some of that technology and did it over, you know, in this island. And I can't remember it, man. Why? I don't understand. But everything connected, and then started trying to. Okay, so what happened if the Eldridge happened? What happened to these naval officers? Why were most of them institutionalized? You know, why were some of them died? You know, if we're just talking about magnetic fields, you know, what happened that caused them to have radiation burns? You know, and you start trying to go into Navy records and things like that, and you know, public domain stuff, because back then they didn't have the where you could go and ask for freedom of information. So you were having to go and look up news articles and things like that, and you could try to look up a name and then try to follow where that lead. So there's a lot of, you know, experimental stuff going on. You're basically doing what reporters do every day, but in your own house and not with as good contacts.
Yeah.
But there were always groups that wanted to talk about it that you could join, and they would give you information. Some of it would not be trustworthy, some of it would, and they, you know, could lead you down a different path and show you where you could go get records. And sometimes records were leaked and put on mirrored sites, because just as fast as they got leaked, they were government agencies trying to pull them down. And so mirrored sites just tried to keep it out in the public domain until eventually all got shut down. And then sometimes you would download that onto your own system, and then that could get you in trouble. Yeah. Because then they're trying to make something disappear and you have it, and they, you know, they're going to have to figure out some way to get rid of it. You know, this is all conspiracy stuff, and I hate conspiracy theorists. So I'm not. I want to go back and relook at my stuff.
That's why I said this part right here doesn't have to be in the episode.
Yeah. What is that? Montauk. Man,
okay.
It took me everything to get that out. So there was the Eldridge that led into Project Phoenix, that led into Project Rainbow, that led into Montauk. If I remember right, that's the lineage. But they had fingers that shot off into all types of military experiments that were going on, including assassination by thought that the military worked on, which came from Nazis. There was the far sight where you could go and track a target or spy on somebody from a distance.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The astral travel one where you could actually go and spy on what was going on in a room by focusing on a target that was in the room and making a psychic link with them. And basically you're traveling in them and seeing seeing and hearing everything they see. What's the other one? Man, we had some back, during the Cold War, we did some crazy stuff. Who would have thought that we owed the Russians our whole space program? We owe the Russians because we stole technology that they had while they were showing it around country to country and putting it on display at presentations. While one of them was en route by truck to the next place, we hijacked the material, broke the satellite thing down, mapped everything out the way it was, and then tried to put it back together and ended up with extra parts. And we just put it together and left it. We took off with a few of the parts and hoped that the Russians would never notice. Mm-hmm. And of course, the Russians noticed it. But then they never accused us of anything because they were already doing the same thing to us. So, if you think about Project Thor, you guys know what Thor was, right?
Yeah.
Okay, dropping a heavy piece of metal from space and letting it hit like a hammer was worse than any bomb you could ever drop. And then there was the attempt to put a manned station on the moon to monitor Russia and other countries that we thought that had bases there because of things that we saw. There were space stations we thought we were gonna or might have had before what was the first one, Skylab, before predating Skylab.
Well, and then we there's also the reports of us being told to stay off the moon after the last.
Yes, there's a really good program called the Black Box, and it's an ex intelligence officer, and he goes out and he tries to either prove or disprove black box or black programs. And he first starts looking at money. Was there massive amounts of money that were funneled into a project and then went nowhere? That's a key sign. How far did the project get? How many people were part of the project? What were the goals of the project? Did they achieve any of them? A lot of them end up funneling millions of dollars in, and then all of a sudden going, oh, we know this thing gonna work. It's all gonna go. Well, did you give that money back to the government? Oh no, we spent it all.
Yeah.
Okay, so prove that in your budget. Where's your expenditures? Well, we can't tell you that because it's top secret. Okay. It's like in one of my favorite lines from Independence Day. You don't really think hammers cost $600 and toilet seats $800.
Plausible deniability.
Well, plausible deniability is something different.
No, I know, but I mean that was one of the lines from the movie. Whenever.
Yeah, and that's we see that in a lot of politics today. I don't want to know. That way, I don't have to lie if somebody asks me. Mm-hmm. Everybody believes that we've got all this advanced technology. And I'm like, if that were true, why aren't we using it right now? What are we waiting for? Is there something we're really scared of and we don't want to use it right now?
Well, we're still at war with ourselves, Dad. It's not like we're unified.
Why hide it? Why, if we have the technology to take out an enemy who's threatening the world with nuclear annihilation, why aren't you using it?
Well, think about it.
Because it would change everything.
Correct. There may be
Oh, now
technologies that we have that we don't want others to know, because the moment it's really, think about when we dropped 2 bombs. At that moment, the world changed.
yes. The
So you
first
think
one
about,
was to stop Japan and utterly break them. The second one was a message to Russia, who was the next one in line to be able to have a bomb. And that was to show we'll do anything we have to do. The first one was to end a war and totally obliterate any resistance from our enemy. That second bomb was to send a message to our next enemy saying, we're not afraid, and this is what we have. You know, if it had ended there, the world might be a better place now. Because think of all the money we've put into finding new and creative ways to destroy ourselves instead of creating new things.
Mhm.
Or creating more schools and sending kids to school for free and building that next generation of inventors and creators. No, we just kept funneling more money into companies like Raytheon and other ones that just find new ways to kill each other.
so Colin, what were you going to say?
The remote viewing project was called Stargate Project and was
Stargate,
in Maryland.
Yeah. Remote viewing. Which there was a really clever movie made. Was it People That Stare at Goats? That was one. That was the assassination part of it, where you just stop their mind and kill them with a thought.
Well, you think also, what was it? So Stephen King wrote the book, The Institute was about that. Picking up psychic kids or kids with certain abilities and training them to be used as weapons of war to stop certain events from happening throughout history. Because you had the ones that could tell
Predict
the future.
Yeah.
You had the ones that could see things, and you had the ones that were trained to be the next killers, the ones that would take out the subject with mental abilities.
Now, what's funny is, you got people who want to talk about superheroes and what powers would you want to have. Could you imagine how powerful you'd be if you could control the power of probability? Almost like Wanda, which is what her power originally was. It was when she did her hex powers before she was taught by Agatha, was probability. She was able to make the best possible thing happen when she used her ability. It wasn't that she had power, to make things work. She just changed your probability. So you shoot at her, and instead of it was like rolling 69 when we used to play D&D.
Yeah.
The best possible thing would happen for her, and which was detrimental to you.
Mm-hmm.
So if you had that ability for anything, you could take on somebody with a gun. You could control the stock market and become rich. You could, prevent accidents. You just have so many things.
Well, if you could just have the ability to make people tell the truth, the world would change instantly.
Oh yeah, I always used to wish for that. I used to wish for that all the time. Just you don't even have to be in the room with them. All you had to do was look at them from a distance and instantly make them tell the truth. But I think you'd also, because people like and need to believe in our fantasies, need to blind ourselves from certain things, we're willing to be deceived. And if we all had to tell the truth 100% of the time, I think it would become a much more dangerous and terrible world. Sometimes I don't like lies, but I understand that a white lie could save a person's life if they're, depressed and feeling dejected from the world. And you come up and go, well, maybe it's because you're an asshole and you talk bad to people. Okay, well, thank you. I'm gonna go in the other room for a minute, and then they off themselves. That, I think, having the ability to force people to completely tell the truth might be worse than having white lies. But I do believe some people just need to be forced to tell the truth. When nothing but lies come out of their mouth and it hurts hundreds and thousands of people, just a switch, and then let it all happen, and then flip them back and then watch them try to convince everybody, I didn't say that. That didn't come out of my mouth. Oh, you misheard me. I'm being taken out of context. You're misquoting me. And then you play the video for them. And then they'll accuse you of doctoring the video.
Mm-hmm.
But there were just so many projects that the Nazis worked on too. What was that one project that was supposed to power all of their equipment? They also believed they were going to be able to do time travel. They were so close to rockets. And if we hadn't helped kidnap some of their scientists, they would have created the atomic bomb first.
Yeah.
One of my favorite books is The Man in High Castle, which explores what would have happened if the Nazis won. But now we're getting into what ifs and not really based in reality.
We've already kind of diverged for a little bit here, and part of this isn't going to go in the episode at all. So
let's get back so you can have enough to finish the episode when you edit it out.
Okay.
You could use this as kind of one of your little side things. Here's where we diverged off and went off into conspiracies.
Well, and then the thing too is, like, I figured that hey, if they chose this one, there's good content here, but it's not going to be as long as an episode.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be.
Yeah. So but yeah, so you saw two UFOs.
Mm-hmm.
Now, were they all up in New York area or in that
up here? And they were both traveling northward. That much, And then they were visible to the naked eye. But they were way up there. And a few years after because every once in a while there's a sighting or there's some strange thing going on. And now the 176 Air Base out of Syracuse, they've gone strictly to drone. So they've been flying drones around specific times of the year. So you have to be careful about identifying those. But strangely enough, there's an uptick at times. You can actually trace the patterns.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, unless they're flying a black ops too, they have, just for aviation, are required to have certain light patterns on the planes, on the wings, and even drones have wings. Right. And so there are keys that you can look at that, that was a drone. Also, they have to follow a flight plan.
Well, they're also really super noisy.
Yeah, and so there's a guy, and what he does is he goes to every launch that America does, sets up telescopes and stuff and cameras so he can photograph the launch. He tracks down the telemetry, how it would be traveling, and he looks at because they have to be notify the AF, what is it? The ones who, and then sometimes he sees where, I'm expecting this to come across this part of the horizon, and it doesn't. But this is what it says in all the official documentation. So for some reason, that craft deviated. It's an American or Chinese or whatever craft deviated from its flight plan. What is it up to? He said he finds a lot of that, but he also finds where something comes across the sky. It's picked up on our radar. The military picks it up. But it's not in any registered flight plan. There's nothing in that airspace that is ours, but here it is. It's being tracked.
Right.
And he was one of the first people who figured out, the what is that small shuttle, the X something? It looks like the shuttle, but it's unmanned and it can stay up in space for prolonged time.
Right.
And the military uses it. What is it?
The X-11, I think.
I don't. One of them was being designed for NASA use. The government came and shut it down. pulled the funding, and then all of a sudden the Air Force started having their own version of it, and their number is 2 numbers higher than what the last one NASA built. And he was one of the first ones to realize that that was up, and he was tracking it. And the military actually came out and said, yeah, that was ours. And people were thinking it was a UFO, and he was like, no, this launched from here, and I'm tracking it through satellite feed and everything else. And he ended up actually catching the military testing one of their new aircraft without anybody else knowing it. And I don't know his name, but if you look it up, you'll find it. It's online. Now, UFOs. I've seen cigar-shaped objects. I've been driving through downtown Houston, everybody stopping and looking, and up in the skyline, you see a cigar-shaped object. In Houston, I was coming home from work one night at Popeyes, and it was 12:30, and it was one of those nights where there was fog. And I hated that because right there used to be a Shipley's Donuts by the McDonald's, and there were guys that hung there, and they were always up to no good. So I walked up under the overpass and along the side of the overpass till I got past them instead of crossing with the light. And then I'd go down, cross the road, go by the field, which eventually became that plant place, and then walk through the front by the trailer park, the place that sold the trailers, and then go down the road to my house. And I was walking, and I kept seeing a light out of the left side of my eye, and I'd look,
Don't do it.
and I didn't see it.
Do it.
And then so I turned and I was staring, and I noticed 2 people that had walked to there, because Shipley's used to be all night. Cops used to go there to get donuts and stuff. And so they were walking to their car, and they're up staring at it. And then I look at it, and it had moved from where I first saw it. And there was that church that used to be on East Haven with the big steeple. And there was like a light pole that you could see coming up over the neighborhood. And it was on the light from the light pole was here, and it was setting on the other side of it. And I was like, that is not a double light pole. What the hell is that? And then I saw it move. They kind of quit, got in their car, and they left. Mm-hmm. And I'm like walking, and I'm walking kind of backwards so I can watch this thing. And I stopped right by the woods because it was darker there, and I wasn't getting the bleed off of the lights off the road or from that area where the Shipley's and the McDonald's were. So it was much darker, and it's easier to see. And it went past, but behind the steeple. So I was like, oh, that object is much further out. It's an illusion that it's closer because there's objects in the forefront that it equals in sizes. But if you think about how big it is and how it's further out, it's over closer to Allen Genoa Road than it is to by the church. And then it passed the church, and it went off to an area that kind of disappears over by Hobby Airport, the back way to it. And I was like, okay, well, that was weird. And I walked home. And then as I turned and walked in and was coming up the back way of the trailer park, it was there, and it was much closer, and it was over those woods we used to play in. Mm-hmm. And man, I started to walk a little faster, and I started to basically, I broke into a run, got to the door, was panicking, trying to get my key in. And I remember my dad opened the door and told me, what the hell's wrong with you? And I was like, get in the house, get in the house. And I pulled the door shut on me. He goes, what is it? You being chased? I was like, no, it's nothing. Nothing. He's like, oh, go to bed. It's late. You're going to go to school in the morning. You ain't skipping school. So I went and laid down, and I wanted to go back outside and look and see what it was, but I was too afraid of it. And then
sometimes it's best not to do things like that.
And then there was the time we used to see stuff over by the trailer park. And I remember when we were all outside at one time when it looked like there was a portal of hell opened up. And it was an illusion because there was some flaring going on off of 225. Mm-hmm. And it was a big flare, but you couldn't see it from where we were. but
No.
it was refracting through the smog and the moisture in the air because there were some clouds. And even though there was no really clouds over where we were, it just made this flame portal appear up over Pasadena and over there by Edgebrook. It was Fairmont on our side. Then you cross Shaver and it became Edgebrook. And it was over towards that area. And then to go inside and turn on the news, and it's being talked about on the news because everybody was seeing the same thing that you saw. And then it wasn't until the next day that they said, oh, this was because there was this massive flaring going on. And what you were seeing is the light travel a great distance, reflecting off of different particles in the air to manifest over there. Hey, I bought it. I wanted to buy it. And it seemed feasible to me, but it sure didn't look like no.
No,
flaring.
it didn't. I mean, that was when we were at the one, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
That was the trailer. Because we were all on that road out there right in front of where across from the field where I said the tree where the swing was. Yeah. And we're just all of us, Andrew and some of the other kids were over, and we just were all staying outside going, looking at it. And to find out they had actually pictures of it on the news was great. Because that's kind of justification you want. It's got to be seen by a lot of people. It's got to be photographed where you can zoom in on it, get great detail off it. I always hate that all the photos we get of this stuff is always grainy, horrible shot of it. Nobody's getting any good photographs of anything. And now we find out that even the Air Force has got files open again. I thought, because back when we were younger, the big talk was Project Blue Book and how that it found nothing. They found very few unexplainable things. And some of the times when they tried to explain something, you're like, oh, that is so bullshit. There's no way they're telling the truth there.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't have Mulder and I can't remember her name. It was Scully, right?
Scully, yes.
Yeah, to guide us in the way. And this is long after Carl Kolchak had left the air. The Night Stalker, which was one of my favorite shows growing up.
Well, I mean, yeah, we had. Remember, I saw the one thing over there by Grandma's house that one time. I drew up in the air.
When we were coming back from Oklahoma from the cake show, remember?
I know.
It was me driving and your sister driving, and we're going through this one where there's nothing. You're seeing there's no lights. They're not getting any bleed off from the city, and you get just perfect, beautiful pictures of the sky if you were to take out your camera. And all of a sudden, you see a low, slow moving orb. Because they always look. Most of the things I've ever saw were roundish, or they looked roundish to me. But that doesn't mean they were round. That was just the light coming off of them, the way my eye perceived it.
Mm-hmm.
And then it stops. Why did it stop? And then it shoots straight up, and then stop, and then go shooting off up in the distance. And I get a Dad, yeah, and Ember and them are in the car behind us. Did you see that? Yeah, I saw it. Okay, we just want to make sure we weren't going crazy. No, we weren't going crazy. That's why they call this that road, such a road. There's an Air Force base or something close by that people say the Air Force base was put there because so many people over so many years have had activity that was there. But we don't have anything other than a helicopter that can be flying and then stop and then go straight up and then take off again. I think a Harrier can take off from the ground. It can hover, but I don't think that's how a Harrier would. And I know there's no Harriers at that base. There were stuff that we used to see by Ellington Field all the time.
Oh yeah.
Then trying to remember, we were coming back from somewhere, and you know what a tower looks like? They have like red light dots, and you see the dots that go up to tell you how high it is. That's for small planes that are flying low. And we were driving, and there were 4 dots. And I was like, man, that's a pretty high tower, because there was a great distance from the ground before the dots started. So there you got the brace of the legs coming up in a triangle type, and then it stretches up and it branches out. And the top light, as we approach, and it was night, we're coming back from somewhere really late, and everybody was crashing a little bit in the car, and I was listening to the radio, and I remember waking you guys up going, hey, watch that light, because the light at the top was shifting. And I was like, okay, the road is straight. We're not kind of going at an angle, so I'm seeing it from a different angle. That light's moving. And all of a sudden, it moves away from the tower. So you've got all these red dots on the tower, but there's 3 of them like you normally saw. And then this 4th one has moved off away from the tower and is just sitting there. And we were all like, I'm trying to drive, and when you drive, if you take your eyes off the road, the car tends to go the direction you're looking. And then everybody going, well, look at it, you drive. I was like, I want to see it too. And then it shot across the road and went off to the west. And I was like, wow, that was awesome. But then again, I've seen helicopters and stuff like that look like a UFO until you get closer to them. And up here, we have military always flying towards what is the Fort Hood area that over there.
Yeah.
So we'll get military airplanes and military helicopters and all kinds of stuff flying over, and then everybody gets on Facebook going, hey, are you watching this? What are they doing? And then sometimes it gets we get really unusual activity. There's a lot of it. And I've called y'all before and said, hey man, there's helicopters all over the place up here. I wonder what's going on. And they're not police copters, and they're not news copters, because you can tell what a news copter looks like. These are military helicopters, and they're either doing maneuvers and training, or they're something going on.
But it's definitely not the bat copter trying to get rid of shark repellent.
No, it's not the bat copter. It's like, I remember I was telling Ray that I was outside watching, because there's still enough farms around me to where they have the crop dusters coming in and spraying the fields. And man, they'll be just flying, and you'll hear them dive bomb. And one guy has a friggin' old biplane looking plane. I love watching him fly around. And Ray was like, what do you mean you're watching a crop duster? You live in a city, right? I was like, man, I live in a small town that is got a lot of new subdivisions being built, but I'm surrounded by farmland and fields. And now I'm missing my woods again behind me. I can't believe that's all gone. It's 200 homes now, and all the deer and everything that used to live in there are all relocated. Yeah. And what was cool was, because remember, way on the other side of that, there was a brand new baseball field they built, and you could see that light up on the other side of the field, and it made the woods glow at night. So because of the light, man, the lights from that baseball field were like blinding. And then you'd hear people driving their ATVs and their trucks and driving all around in there and acting fools. And there's something different, like, about the woods. We talk about spirituality. The forest and trees, there's something about being in nature that changes persons, opens them up to things that is we don't get living in the city. It's a total different energy from cities.
Well, literally, I mean, you literally have all the electronics and everything in a city that's just always on, and that there's that natural hum that, unless you're paying attention to it,
Yeah, it sounds like electrical wires. It's like the hum of power running through the power lines. Yeah. And that's another thing I always wondered about, if spirits or entities need power, because sometimes they'll drain your power from your electrical devices to help manifest themselves. What happens when you live next to one of these massive power lines? You know, yeah, I don't know if you actually hear a lot of issues happening near power
And
lines.
things like that can happen. The thing is, like we talked about earlier, the power lines themselves and anything emitted off of them, if you're that close to them, you can end up, like we talked about, where it can actually affect you
It affects your
adversely.
thoughts. Yeah, it affects your mental state.
Right. So
Um,
basically, it becomes a 6 of 1. They got to get checked out first, and if all that's ruled out that they're okay and stuff like that, then they go in and investigate. And yes, they can feed off of those power lines, but usually if they're going to feed off of something, it has to be more personal.
okay.
Because like the power lines can sit there and feed it, but that would be feeding, anything could feed off of it. So if you're
And
going
that
to have,
includes human energy, right? Have you
yeah, most
noticed
of the
that
time it's
people
human
who are,
energy or human psyche or anything like that. They feed off of, again, back to the poltergeist thing. They it's the type of energy we have people, we radiate, you know, and like auras and stuff like that. That's the kind of energy they will feed in. They can feed off of, like, it's like if you wear a watch and stuff like that and it drains it. That's because
yeah,
part of
they
your,
had said it was because
yeah,
my personal electromagnetic field zaps anything that has a battery on it. It
right,
took me a long time. I used to have to wear, when I first put on my, what do you call it? My insulin pump.
yeah,
I was always having to change the battery in it for a long time, and then all of a sudden it just something changed physiology, you know what I mean,
right,
within my body, and it's I quit having to change the battery in it all the time. Um, Physiology. Maybe I'll
yeah,
get it out eventually. Um, but I'm just curious about, vampirism at its core were originally about energy vampires. It wasn't about
yeah, psychic
drinking
vampirism.
blood, psychic vampirism. And I believe that
That
you can
still
see
happens.
somebody who just looks drained all the time, but they don't get enough. They get sleep and everything, but they just
Mhm.
look like their soul is being drained out of them.
Yes.
And um, you got to wonder if something has invaded their home, their life. Something's draining that energy off of them.
Yeah,
Um,
and that does happen, but most of the time there is another person with some kind of an ability that can be at the root of that.
yes,
It's like in the major cities, just like there are underground clubs for everything else, there are psychic vampire, clubs, if you will, where they go in. You have willing, it's like a,
no, it's just they have actual vampire clubs where you go there and they actually drink your blood.
yeah, they
Yeah,
have, they have ones that are, you know, basically dominant and submissive and stuff like that, but it's all psychically done and stuff like that. There's a investigator and author named Michelle Belanger, who is a psychic, who can do psychic vampire stuff, and she went out and explained the whole process. And there was a whole, like, a mini documentary on it. It was very well done. It explained a lot about it.
if you got the link to that, if you send it to me when if you
I'll
find
see
it.
if I can find it, because I'm trying to remember. Because it was back when she got real popular because of her hanging out with Ryan Buell and the Paranormal State people. So I'll see if I can dig that up. It was very informative. And they even did the scientific equipment to show, did all the cameras and the
Well,
footage.
I remember somebody doing an experiment where you actually see energy leaving one
Yes.
person, and it went from the head to the head of the other person,
Yes.
and that there was a visual it was actually equipment that was watching it, that
Yes.
they could see the
They actually
transfer.
scientifically measured it during this thing. Yes. So you might have actually seen part of it. Or they took that footage and added it in there because that was one of the things that they did to prove that it was actually happening. So I'll see if I can dig that up and get you the link on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have to rethink, a lot of those things. I'd love to get back into all of that, but I'm on a cane now and there ain't no way I can run. So whatever happens, I got to face it. No, it's like, well, y'all run. I'll hold it off. Y'all just remember me.
Cardio, Dad. Cardio. I'm joking.
My legs don't work. Neither one of my legs are coordinated enough to cardio.
I know.
Give him a scooter.
It's like I used to tell people, if you are driving by and you see me running, stop and pick me up because I'm running from something. Because I don't run.
All right, Dad.
Yeah, I think
Yeah, I just wanted to say, my grandson's getting into this stuff, and that's because he's heard all of the stories, and I try to drill it home for him that it's not, you don't play. You can't go into this thinking it's fun, that you're playing. You're there for a reason. You're there to do something. You have to be careful because some things will latch on to you and you'll take it home. And it might not go after you. It might go after somebody else in your house that's more vulnerable.
Right.
So you have to be careful. I said, when you go to these sites, don't take souvenirs. Don't pick anything up.
Nope.
And just be careful what you're doing. It's at his age, this is, great fun to do, but at some point he's going to run into something he can't explain, and it's going to scare the pants off of him.
Yeah.
And that's when he'll decide whether he wants to stick with it or I'm done with this. I'm not playing.
Right. And Logan, if you're watching this, it's not like you see on TV at all. Okay, that's all fancy edited from hours and hours of footage crammed down into an hour and a half.
Yeah.
And there's always enhancements added. So it is far different. So I mean, one thing that I can offer to anybody who's interested in this stuff is, yes, you're going to end up with these moments of exciting things or complicated things or things you may or may not want to do with. But most of the time, it's like you hear cops talk about a stakeout. There's hours and hours of nothing. It'll sit there. It'll be quiet. Every little creak will have your head turning, because especially if you're not familiar with the place. And then you'll just be like, is that? No. Is that? No. Is that? No. And hours of it. You'll get.
Can you imagine
10 minutes of excitement for 2 hours of nothing?
That's what used to drive me crazy. Like if you do any kind of length of recording on stuff, you've got to sit through all of it. And you're going to have to sit through it more than once, because just sitting in front of a screen, you're going to miss things because your eyes get tired, you get distracted. You're going to have to watch that minute time as it kicks across the bottom of the screen. It tells you at what point it is to go back to it so you can isolate on that one thing. It's like you said, it's 10 seconds of excitement and 5 hours of boredom out of your mind.
Dead air, nothing.
So, Colin, I guess on the out on this, so for the episode, if anybody wants to get into this thing, what can they do? To start
do a lot
out,
of reading, do a lot of studying.
And
you can watch some of the TV stuff, but go look for documentaries on it. Go find books. Okay,
and make sure they're reputable.
You're going to find a ton of books on the subjects and stuff like that, but you want to look at the stuff, especially the stuff that's older. Okay, the Hans Holzer stuff, the stuff from the 60s and the 70s when it all got started. That's the good foundation to work with. And then, don't look for the stuff that's sensationalized, and you'll be able to, if you just take a couple minutes, you'll be able to, in the descriptions of the books, you'll be able to see what's more sensationalized and what's okay. Hey, we're gonna this like there's a couple of books. There's like the Ghost Hunters handbook, the UFO Hunters handbook, things like that. Those are more straightforward. Also, it doesn't hurt to go look at the stuff for dummies. Okay, there's a lot of the things like the supernatural, the paranormal, all that stuff for dummies, and it'll when you get one or two authors who collaborate on it, it's not just one perspective. It's more rounded out, and it lays it out for you a lot smoother. So, and just get an idea of what it is you want to do. Think about why you want to do it. Is it because, I can get on famous or on TV or whatever, or this person does it, so I think it'd be cool? Wrong reasons.
For me, I believe you should go in with a skeptic's mentality. Don't go in believing you're going to find something. Go in expecting not to find something, and always trying to disprove that it's a haunting. Because if you go, you're going to find what you want to see.
Right.
If you go in, going, okay, I don't really truly believe in this, but I've got an open mind. So let me experience it for myself. Right. That's where you're going to start learning lessons, and you're going to start learning more about it. And there are universities who've done years of study on this stuff. You can go look at what different colleges have done and different institutes.
Cambridge has got a lot of good stuff
on. But I always say shy away from the celebrity. And
use that as a reference point, not as the beacon or the guideway. You say, okay, what about it? Is it the use of if you're thinking about, okay, I want to be able to learn scientifically how this may or may not be this, and going back to books and documentaries, don't be afraid to look at, like Vince said, don't be, skeptically. If you want a good balance at it, find a book that really talks up the subject, and find one that really talks it down. And somewhere in the middle, you're going to find that thing. You're going to find that little bit of common ground. You're going to go, okay, that's what I'm looking for. Or
yes,
this is what I'm looking for.
Yeah, because the truth is always somewhere in the center of any situation.
Yeah.
And then you just, you kind of build it from there. For me, when I first started way back in high school, it was just, okay, you have this. Let me go see what I see. And that's basically all it was in the beginning. It wasn't about, okay, I'm going to go see a ghost, or I'm not going to see a ghost. What am I going to see? What am I going to take away from it? If it's nothing, great. If it's something, it's another thing you can reflect on later. You can go back and say, okay, yeah, I do know that now. Or I've learned, a little bit more about it. And then that'll help define where you want to go with it. Then you can go say, okay, I know this, or I'm familiar with this. It's like a lot of people won't touch the exorcism and the demonology stuff because they're too scared of it. They'll want to stay about, hauntings and ghosts and stuff like that, where it's less hurty in the end, if you will. Yeah. So, it's, just.
It just depends on what you're ready and capable and willing to deal with.
What is it you want to learn from it? What do you want to take away when you're done with it?
Yeah. So,
All right, everyone. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Of course, this happened a long time. We just never got a chance to actually get it edited out so people could see it. But it was definitely a fun time. I do want to give some announcements before I go. And that is next week on Saturday, we will be live. That episode is going to be about shark horror movies. I'm going to be graced, of course, with my dad and as well as a couple guests, Retro Chipperone, Ty Lord, and Zombie. We'll be discussing our favorite shark movies and how awesome they are and all this other stuff. So we hope to see you next episode. Until then, everyone have a great weekend. Keep watching those horror movies or playing those horror games. And in the meantime, see you next time. Peace out, everyone.